Good afternoon.
Hello there.
How are you?
Good. We'll get started in just a little bit.
Okay.
We can share the sign-in sheet with you.
Huh? Thank you.
There you go. You're welcome.
Anita, do you
Yeah.
have a sign-in sheet?
I put it in the chat, but let me go ahead and put it again.
Okay, sorry.
Maybe it didn't show up yet, or showed up
Mine
right
did.
before you signed in. There you go. Oops. So it is 1 o'clock, and so we'll go ahead and get started. I'll put the sign-in sheet one more time in the chat. And I'll go ahead and unhide my face for you. And we'll get started with the presentation. So today is National Chocolate Cake Day. So happy National Chocolate Cake Day. If you notice, there's a little message down here. It says accepting cake donations at the Technology Center. You know, my doctor would not approve, but if you want to drop off cake, I will gladly accept it. But it's just kidding, just a joke. So, but happy Chocolate Cake Day. If you get a chance to eat some chocolate cake, let me know how it goes. And today we're going to be talking about spreadsheets and tables, charts, and graphs. So this application, along with these tools, will help your students gain an understanding of recording and organizing information and data. We'll look at some standards that correlate with these technology skills and a little bit on how to incorporate them into your curriculum. So it may look a little different than up in the upper grades just because I do not have the curriculum for 7th through 8th in the math, but hopefully we'll still get an idea of what it looks like. So we'll start off with 6th grade, and I just want to go back just to 5th grade for a little bit, just so you can see what all was required of them. So you're not too surprised of what is introduced in 6th grade. So in 5th grade, they should have mastered an understanding of the spreadsheet as a tool to record, organize, and graph information. By that time, they need to identify and explain terms related to spreadsheets. So they should know what a cell is, a column, rows, values, labels, charts, and graphs are. They should be able to know how to enter and edit data in spreadsheets and perform calculations using formulas. And they should know how to use mathematical symbols, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and exponent, all those symbols. and they should know how to use spreadsheets and other applications to make predictions, solve problems, and draw conclusions. So if they're not quite there yet, you'll need to kind of go back and go over those things with them before you go into introducing these skills here that I'll show you. So some of the math practices that go with the skills that they'll need is using appropriate tools strategically. And some of the standards, and this is not limited to statistics and probability, but is just one of the domains that it hits on. But you'll also see where they may use spreadsheets and expressions and equations, and also with ratios and proportional relationships. But you'll see it a lot more in statistics and probability, especially down here where they have to use data and plotting number lines. So they're using those graphs and things like that. So it's a good idea for them to know how to make those graphs. So it doesn't specify like a certain standard, but if you notice, most of this right here is talking about graphs, it's talking about measuring, it's talking about numerical data sets. So it all kind of encompasses being able to use pretty much all of this in relation to using a spreadsheet. So it's not just one specific standard. Oops, wrong one. I can go ahead and close this one out so I don't get confused. And the other standard that goes with this is in reading. So reading information, and it's integrate information presented in different media or formats, visually and quantitatively. So there's our big word there, as well as in words to develop a coherent understanding of a topic or issue. And I'm going to bring back this one real quick because it makes more sense in actually the 4th grade. Let me find that one. So this is the same standard, but take it back a couple grades, and it just kind of changes a little bit over time. That same standard, reading for information, this is 4th grade for point 7. Interpret information presented visually, orally, quantitatively. They've just taken out this part right here. For example, charts, graphs, diagrams, timelines, animations, or interactive elements on web pages. And so they don't give you those ideas anymore. They just assume that you probably know that by now, but it's still in there in the 6th grade one. They've just shortened it right here. But as you can see, it's the same standard, reading for information. It's just 6th grade, point 7. And they've kind of just changed it just a little bit, but still think that you're still wanting them to do these things in the same manner. So some of the lessons that you can start incorporating spreadsheets would be in topic 8. And I do believe that they're still using Envisions in 6th grade. So this is where I went. If we go down to topic 8, they are using data. So this is a great time to introduce or let students use spreadsheets. And it doesn't have, in your syllabus, realize it doesn't explicitly say this is where you're going to have students use spreadsheets, but this is a great time for them to be introduced to it so they can get an idea. You have some different options here, like under projects, summarizing. Later on, they do have to create their own, so maybe they can make their own data. They do have to summarize here in this lesson, and those would all be great ways to incorporate them creating their own spreadsheets with this. So it's not part of it, but it would be a great time to include that in there. So in topic 8. So you saw all the ones that they needed to know in 5th grade. These are all the skills that they'll need to know to be able to be successful with spreadsheets, is start introducing these skills. So they'll need to know how to use a spreadsheet to calculate, how to graph, how to organize, how to present data in a variety of real-world settings, and choose the most appropriate type to represent given data. They need to know how to enter formulas and functions, use the autofill feature in a spreadsheet application, use the functions of a spreadsheet application, so knowing how to sort, filter, and find, use various number formats, such as scientific notations, percentages, exponents, as appropriate, so depending on what you're actually using it for, and use advanced formatting features of a spreadsheet application. So reposition columns and rows, add and name worksheets. And that's quite a lot, especially for 6th grade. Like I've mentioned before in other applications, when you introduce something such as these, always start with one tool at a time. So if I go out of here and I open up a simple little spreadsheet here, and if your students are new to it, if they didn't get exposed to it in 5th grade or the previous years, and they've never seen a spreadsheet before, start simple. Introduce, just show them how to open up a spreadsheet, show them how to name a spreadsheet. And then the next lesson, talk about what the rows and the columns are, talk about what the cell is. So just naming the different parts of a spreadsheet. And then you can go in and talk about how to insert a chart with the data that they put in, how to change the charts, things like that. You can also do a few simple things like getting the sum of the cells. So start small with your kiddos, and then as they do start to master these little things here and there, you can always have them do some fun activities such as this one. And that one, when it's all finished, you can see it becomes a little Among Us character. So, but they have to know how to do some of those basics before they can actually do this part. So, and it's a lot of fun. And where was I? Back over here. And then going into 7th grade, they're still using the same mathematical practice. And I went ahead and kept the same statistics and probability, but like I said, there are other domains that they'll be using it in. This is just the one where they'll see it the most. So again, it's going to go into these right here, where they're talking about representing any kind of data where it's, especially down here, represent sample spaces using methods, organized lists, tables, diagrams, anything like that. You're going to see it again here. Some other, any kind of other diagrams. And you may see it again if I go over to this domain here. It talked about like solving real world mathematical problems. So a lot of those can be put and used into spreadsheets. As you can see right here, identify the constant proportionality in tables, graphs, diagrams. There's where it is. So especially in these upper grades, spreadsheets are going to be pretty helpful. So get them used to using them and learning how to insert data into them. This one changes a little bit again. It says compare and contrast to a text to an audio or multimedia version of the text, analyzing each medium's portrayal of the subject, how the delivery of speech affects the impact of words. So yes, it kind of like falls into ELA instead of math, but being able to discuss in words is also part of explaining when you're using spreadsheets and graphs. So presenting your spreadsheet, this is all just part of that. So in 7th grade, you're reinforcing the ones that you've introduced in 6th grade, and you have a couple optional skills here that you can introduce, which is using multiple sheets within a workbook and create links among worksheets to solve problems, and import and export data between spreadsheets and other applications. And if you're not familiar with spreadsheets yourself, and I'll admit I am not an expert when using spreadsheets. I was not an expert in using Excel. I'm still not an expert in using the ones through Google either. So yeah, these are not easy for me. I know the basics, and I can tell you how to insert data. I can tell you how to make a graph. I can even tell you a few formulas and how to do a few conditions, but I'm nowhere near expert. If you want expert level, you can go hit up Steven and he can show you all the ins and outs and create some really cool stuff like this one here. This was not me. A friend sent this to me and I thought it was really fun and I was able to finish the picture off, but I did not create it myself. I'm not that creative. And but some people can get really creative with these. So yeah, let me know and I can find some of those for you and share them with you. But I don't know how to do them myself. So and going into 8th grade. And so like I said, I don't know what curriculum 8th grade is using. I have access to Apex, but I don't all it's giving me because I'm an admin. It doesn't give me the actual work that the students, it just gives me all the data. And that wasn't really useful for me to bring up any lessons that could go with it. So if you want to meet with me one-on-one, you're having trouble like finding an appropriate place to bring in spreadsheets and how to get your kids using them, you can show me where you're at in your curriculum and I can look through it. You can share that with me and I'll find a good place where it would work. But I can give you the standards and you can kind of match that up. So again, we're looking at statistics and probability. This one again changes just a little bit. Evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of using different mediums, print or digital text, video, multimedia to present a particular topic or idea. And by 8th grade, all the skills that were introduced in 6th and 7th, these are all going to be mastered by 8th grade, hopefully. And then you're going to introduce a few more skills. You're going to introduce differentiating between formulas with absolute and relative cell references. You're going to introduce using multiple sheets within a workbook and create links among worksheets to solve problems, and import and export data between spreadsheets and other applications. And 9th and 10th is combined, mostly because of the Common Core standards. They're combined as well, so I went ahead and combined these. And it changes as far as like what the standards kind of look like. So I went ahead and added functions. And it has so many components in functions that I just went ahead and put the introduction, but you're going to see a lot of stuff that has to do with graphs and things like that. So that's why I just went ahead and just put that part. I am not a math person anymore. I mean, the math was my minor, but that was a long time ago. We won't talk about how long ago that was. So I have not done math in a very long time. And so, like, again, you'd have to show me where you're at in your math curriculum for me to say, yes, that would be a great place. And you've probably already done it, unless you're like a very new teacher and you're not very confident or sure where you're at or what you should be bringing in at a certain time, then I can definitely help you out and help get those lessons put together for you. And again, statistics and probability is still in there. Um, and then this one changes again a little bit more. Analyze various accounts of a subject told in different mediums, such as a person's life, in both print and multimedia, determining which details are emphasized in each account. So on this one, for ninth grade anyways, these skills are going to be mastered, hopefully. If your students are still struggling with the spreadsheets, make sure you're giving them the time to get these skills mastered by giving them opportunities to use this, to use spreadsheets. And if they're just very, very new still because they haven't been exposed to it in the previous grades, just make sure that you introduce it kind of like you would in the younger grades, you would in sixth grade, just a little bit at a time. Just have them create some simple spreadsheets. Don't give them too much data to input into it. Start small, and you notice that over time they will get there. Oops, and then reinforce the ones you introduced last year, that they were introduced to last year, which is differentiating between the formulas, using multiple sheets within the workbook, and importing and exporting data between spreadsheets and other applications. And so finally, by 10th grade, all of those skills should be mastered. So unlike the ones when we did word processing, which were mastered at a lot younger or earlier grade level, this is mastered a little bit later, just because it was introduced later too. So spreadsheets aren't introduced until around second, third grade, whereas word processing was introduced, kindergarten. So this one is a little further down, which makes more sense. It is a little bit more tedious and a little more difficult to understand. So by 11th and 12th grade, these haven't changed up here. And this one has changed just again slightly. Integrate and evaluate multiple sources of information presented in different media or formats, visually and quantitatively, as well as in words in order to address a question or solve a problem. And all those are still the same. If we look at the high schools, it's all kind of bunched together. So you don't really get separate up in once you get into 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. As far as functions in high school algebra, it's all kind of just there. So all of the math and everything, I'm not sure why they have it like that, but it is. So any questions on, I know this one was a short one, but there's really not a whole lot as far as introducing spreadsheets. Like I said, if you want more information on spreadsheets specifically, you can come meet with me or Stephen, because he is the expert in spreadsheets. But that is all I have for you today. I know you came in and earlier today was just a quick 20-minute session too, but it's not a whole lot today. So I did hope you enjoyed that very quick little snapshot of a session. But I'll hang on here for just a few minutes if you have any questions.
Anita,
Yes,
would
ma'am.
you mind? Would you post again the sign-in sheet?
Yes,
I am sorry I'm that late.
No, you're good.
Thank you. And actually, would you mind doing the 6th and 7th grade for me offhand again? Because I'd like to see what you were talking about for 6th and 7th. And those were the only two I missed.
Sure, I can go back over that. Let me
Yeah.
share my
Let's
screen
see.
again.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So
Thank
in oh, you're good. So it's just us, but so in 6th grade, we're gonna introduce just a few things like because it changes. I kind of went over. Let me get out of here. So I went over 5th grade for a little bit, just so you
Okay.
can see what they should have already learned in 5th grade. And so if they haven't been introduced to spreadsheets at all in 6th grade, you might want to go over and see what they may have missed and what they should have learned in 5th grade as far as learning spreadsheets to begin with. So they need to know quite a bit going into 6th grade, which is understanding spreadsheets as a tool to record, organize, and graph information. They need to know most of the terms, such as the cells, columns, rows, values, labels, charts, graphs, how to enter and edit data in spreadsheets, calculate calculations and formulas. They need to know how to use symbols, and they need to know how to use spreadsheets and other applications to make predictions, solve problems, and draw conclusions. And so
Okay.
when they go into 6th grade, the skills here will make a lot more sense when they're introduced to them. So make that a little bit bigger for you. So
Okay.
now they're using the spreadsheets. So since they should already been introduced to what the spreadsheets are, they know what the cells are, all the terms of them. They know how to calculate, graph, and they get introduced to organizing, presenting data in a variety of real-world setting situations, and they'll be able to choose the most appropriate type to represent any given data. So they can enter formulas and functions. They should be able to use the autofill feature in a spreadsheet application, and not to fidelity, but they just are introduced at this point. Use functions of a spreadsheet application, so knowing how to introduce to sorting, filtering, finding something in a spreadsheet, using various number formats. So all of these right here, not limited to these, but just some examples like scientific notations, percentages, exponents, and then some advanced formatting features of a spreadsheet application like reposition columns, rows, add and name worksheets. And for 7th grade, I was talking about how this changes from time to time, and I kind of mentioned it makes the most sense, and I'll go back a little bit here, in 4th grade, but they take this part out. So interpret information presented visually, orally, or quantitatively. For example, in charts, graphs, diagrams, timelines, animations, or interactive elements on web pages, and explain how the information contributes to an understanding of the text in which it appears. It's the same standard, it just changes from 3rd grade to 4th grade, 5th, and then finally 7th. It's kind of just taken all out, like the examples change on how they do this, but it's the same reading for information, 0.7. So compare and contrast text to an audio, video, multimedia version of the text, analyzing each medium's portrayal of the subject. it kind of has to do with spreadsheets in a way because of the, I guess, the comparing and contrasting. I'm not even sure. So that was that part. And then the skills, they're reinforcing the ones that they learned in 6th grade. And then right here, they're optional if you want to, if you have time to introduce these 2 skills right here, which is using multiple sheets within the workbook and creating links among worksheets to solve problems and importing, exporting data between spreadsheets and other applications. Was there, do we keep going or are you good?
Well, I'm good. Misty, how about you? Did you
I'm
want to
good. I come in around that time too.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we were at the same meeting together.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate it because, tomorrow I will go back and I'll do it for the Cavern Crusade, fill out my part there. But it helps us to, I'm like, oh, I just want to get this in today. It's just easier.
That's good. I love reading your feedbacks on those too, because I'm so glad you liked it, or so glad you got something like out of it.
Well, I am getting somewhere, and I'm like, I do really appreciate what you guys have done because you're teaching me all the stuff that I never took in college for, because I did try computer programming, but it was just all the X's and O's. And I'm like, well, that's stupid. I don't like this. And I dropped that class.